Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Patriot Underground. Today is October 4th, 2021. Thank you so much for joining me to discover the truth beneath the surface. As always, I am so honored to be your host on this journey as we dive into all of the news of the day and try to make sense of everything that's going on. Of course, today, a very big news day, a lot of action, certainly surrounding Facebook, which is the top story. We're going to get into that. I'm going to cover a whole bunch of other topics and give folks a general sense of where I think we're at right now. Things are heating up rapidly. So thank you so much for joining me. And hopefully tonight you enjoy the commentary as always. So I was looking before I decided to come on and record tonight. I always like to take a look at the headlines, particularly on Before It's News. That's kind of one of my go-to sites, just a real snapshot of what's out there. And boy, the first thing I saw was the picture of these photographs of these deformed children from mothers who apparently took the jab. Now, I know this is kind of a difficult note to start the show on, and I apologize, but um, it was absolutely horrifying. I mean, I actually, I saw a little bit of it, and I mean, we're talking about deformities like multiple limbs. We're talking about animal like tails. And these apparently, like I said, are children who have these deformities from mothers who took the jab. Now, I haven't verified this information. I'm just telling you that it's out there, but I believe it's the top story on Before It's News, and it was just absolutely horrifying. And, you know, I expected when I went on to see a whole bunch of stories, and certainly there are, on the major issue of the day, of course, which is the outage of Facebook, and of course, all of Facebook's companies like Instagram and WhatsApp. And of course, when this first happened, this story first broke, I actually, I heard from someone that Facebook had gone down. I really hadn't even gone online or gone on my phone and looked or anything. And sure enough, Facebook was down, and of course that immediately got my attention. And then I came to find out that it also included Instagram, which of course is a major social network. So I started to look and see, and apparently across the planet, from what I've heard, I think Simon Parks had mentioned, and there were some others I think who reported on this as well, is 75% of the planet had these major outages. And it wasn't just simply limited to social media. It was actually, Verizon reported issues, T-Mobile, AT&T, all of them had issues. And this is just a small sampling. I actually I shared something on my Telegram that was a pretty comprehensive listing of all the different major telecom companies and big tech companies that went down across the planet today. I mean, even Telegram was lagging for a while, which as for those of you who are on Telegram, I'm sure you noticed. So, this was certainly it got my attention right away. But my suspicion was that when it wasn't a full scale comms blackout, like a Red 2 type of situation, right? And by the way, I mean X22 commented on that, and made a good point about Red 2, which is it doesn't necessarily mean that all of the comms and all of the sites go down simultaneously. But certainly when I saw that it was only, it was basically, it seemed to be in our area anyway, limited to the Facebook companies, it definitely raised my suspicion that it probably was something else going on. Now, Facebook very well could be a test run for this. They could be establishing in the public consciousness the idea of a comms blackout. I mean, let's face it. When Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, when these major apps and websites go down, this has ripple effects all throughout the globe. I mean, people, you see it. I mean, I'm not even on any of these, and of course I'm paying attention to it for different reasons, but at one point I was. But you see what happens is that when this type of thing happens, the entire world pays attention. I mean, it sort of jars everybody awake in a sense. And so, to me, I think, I kind of suspected it could be a white hat operation to sort of prime the pump a little bit. And we also had this whistleblower apparently come forward. I guess there's some real credibility issues there, but this whistleblower about Facebook, so it could have had something to do, because apparently this whistleblower had an interview, I guess, on CBS or on 60 Minutes, which again, I that's why I sort of questioned the veracity of this whole situation. But it could be that Facebook was utilizing this nuclear option of just shutting down their platform temporarily in order to block this information. That theory was floated out there, but I don't know. To me, that sounds a little bit more maybe like a cover story. But I mean, there are also a whole bunch of related stories as well. I also heard, and I think it was that when I had seen it, that the New York Times had even reported on this, that Facebook employees were actually locked out when they went to investigate these outages, because they have their badges, their ID badges, and apparently, and of course, they have chips in them or whatever they have in them, I would imagine, and they didn't work. They couldn't get back inside the building. So there's definitely something going on here. Definitely something going on here with Facebook. And could this be, I guess, the big question at this point, because, as of the start of this show, I went and checked, and Facebook and it is back up. I didn't check Instagram, but I'm sure that probably is as well. I mean, so I guess the world can calm down again. But, is this the beginning of this comms blackout scenario? Is it going to be more of a slow rollout? Is it going to be all of a sudden? To me, the fact that we are in Red October, and it's the 4th of October, and we have already seen a major blackout on Facebook, definitely makes me wonder. And I actually saw some really interesting information from Elena Danaan. In fact, one of the followers of my Telegram channel shared this in the chat portion, which at one point I think was down, but I think it's back up and it's working now. Or if it wasn't down, it was lagging terribly. I actually went on to maybe post a few things on Telegram, and it was lagging terribly. But apparently, according to Elena Danaan, she actually shared some intel from what she calls, from upstairs. Of course, to her, who she's referring to would be the non-terrestrials, the benevolent non-terrestrials who are helping us. Specifically, in her case, I believe what she calls her rescuer is named Thorhan, if I'm not mistaken. It's either Thorhan or Valnek, and I can't remember which is which between Elena and Megan Rose, but I believe it was Thorhan, and she actually has what she's described is a non-terrestrial chip, that an implant that enables her to telepathically, I guess, communicate and get these messages. And she received a message that all of the servers that are owned by these 3-letter agencies, and we know, of course, which ones we're talking about, in this process of taking Facebook offline, shall we say, all the servers owned by these 3-letter agencies had been taken down by the alliance, so that this was a white hat operation. And all of the servers and all the satellites, I would imagine as well, are now under the full control of the Earth Alliance. And so the great news, of course, is, as if that wasn't great enough, really the way to frame that properly is that this really is the beginning of a new free internet. And so this was one source of intel, which I thought was very interesting, related to the Facebook scenario. And of course, I think I had mentioned Simon Parks put out some information related to this as well on his channel. He said that this, he believes, is the beginning of the comms blackout in the United States and in the United Kingdom. And I've also heard Canada as well. But I think his message was primarily that this is a white hat operation, just like Elena Danaan said, of course. and that we shouldn't panic. He also added, and this is a quote, "There will be no real war. These are the actions so many have waited for," end quote. And he added, of course, that I think it was, like I said, 75% of the planet had outages. And certainly in the category of social media. And that is really the major choke point for all of the information, isn't it? I mean, that's where people get all of their information. They go to social media. And so when social media platforms go down, that has a massive ripple effect throughout the entire world on communication. And so it could very well be that this is the White Hats priming the pump and indicating that this is the direction that we're headed, and that we're going to be seeing more of this. And that, behind the scenes, of course, there are continual operations going on. But I think it's very, very likely that this is the beginning period of these outages that I think will increase over the coming days. And like I said, it wasn't just limited to Facebook. All right. And I think we're going to find out more and more information as the days go by. And in the meantime, the world is completely on fire, as we know. I mean, everything on the surface is an absolute dumpster fire right now. You've got this literal invasion at the southern border. And I couldn't believe the numbers. When I looked into this, the numbers are absolutely staggering. 400,000 people in 1 month, reportedly, have gone across the southern border. 400,000 people in 1 month. And not only that, we also come to find out it's not just that they come into the country illegally, it's that they're actually trafficked throughout the country illegally. And thank God for Rick DeSantis, because he has filed a lawsuit. This came out a few days ago. I'm sure you've heard about it, but he filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration for human trafficking, because that's exactly what's going on. And our government and all of these different agencies, these bureaucratic agencies, they're shipping these people, they're shipping them all over the country with taxpayer money. And this is nothing new. Of course, you know this. I know that my audience is aware. This has been going on for a long time, but I mean, we've reached a scale at this point. And again, I do believe that this is part of the devolution process, as I've been talking about. Part of the pantomime, part of the devolution process is that the whole system has to implode. Now, again, the good news, as I pointed out, is that this illegal immigration problem, I guarantee you, for whatever that's worth, but I'm telling you just giving you my 2 cents. I guarantee you that when you implement NESARA GESARA, and heck, even if you didn't do that, but if you created a scenario, an economy worldwide where people could actually earn a living in their own home country, they would go back to their home country. In most cases, these folks are here, the people and I've talked about this before recently, the people who are here for the right reasons, these are the people that are simply trying to earn a living for their family, and they're doing it here because their country has gone completely to hell. Completely run by gangs, completely run by cabal-related entities. Oh yeah, they're all related. And so you've got 400,000 people in 1 month, and reportedly they've been shipped all over the country. To New Orleans, to Pittsburgh, to Tampa, to Buffalo, to Orlando, to Cleveland. They're being shipped all over the country. And by the way, here's the best part. They don't have any mandates. They don't have to social distance. Who knows? Maybe they throw a mask on them, maybe they don't. But I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. They certainly don't get immediately jabbed, not from what I've heard. Why? Well, because they're not the enemy. You see, the American people are the enemy. Now, am I suggesting that these people actually are the enemy? Well, in some cases, if they're bad people, yes, they are. But if people are here, like I said, because they've got no other choice to be able to provide for themselves and their families, I have sympathy for these people. And I understand that the world that's been created by the globalists has forced these types of people. This has all been engineered. That's forced these people into these types of situations. This has all been socially engineered over a very, very long period. So yes, I have sympathy for these people. Do I want people running across the southern border in any way, shape, or form illegally? Of course I don't. But it doesn't change the fact that I have sympathy for them. But like I say, you get rid of the economic problem. You change the entire paradigm. You put the world back right side up, and people they'll flock home. There'll be a mass exodus out of the United States. People will love to go back to their home country and watch it grow and thrive again and be a part of a new renaissance in their own home. That's exactly what's going to happen, I think. Sure, maybe a lot will stay here. Maybe a lot will come here. I mean, the world is going to change. We have no way of knowing. But the one thing we do know is it's not going to be the way it is now, and it's going to be equity. Not equity, but equality. I think equity is what they say equity is the race to the bottom, but equality. Every country is going to get back what was stolen from them by the cabal over generations, all of this wealth. And it's not just going to go into the coffer of the government. It's going to go directly to the people, I do believe. And all the inside sources are supporting that very theory. To them, it's not a theory, it's a fact. But this is going to completely change the entire scenario, and it's going to make illegal immigration completely go away, along with a myriad of other problems that the cabal has created. I mean, heck, folks, they've created just about every problem on Earth. I mean, that's what they do. That's what they've done over generations is they get together in these dark corners and these satanic rituals underneath the ground, and they plot our destruction. They figure out a way to completely screw up the world and poison us and kill us and destroy us and confuse us. This is what they do. I mean, and we've reached a point now where what we're seeing is the accelerated devolution process. Now, again, I mean, I think if the cabal really got their way, the original plan was, from what I understand, was to have a nuclear war. That's why in 2016, you heard Hillary, I mean, every time she talked, I mean, she was like salivating over having a nuclear war with Russia. And I couldn't believe at the time. I mean, I knew a lot of things back then, but I mean, I know a lot more now than I did back then. But even at the time, I couldn't believe that so many people weren't disturbed by the fact that here she is campaigning for president, and all she wants to do is talk about having a nuclear war. And that's not more alarming to some people. I think that people listening to her never imagined that she's actually telling the truth. I mean, that was her intention. That's what these people do, by the way. And I'm sure you know this, but they've got to tell you. Yes, they use deceptive tactics, and I've talked a lot about this, but they've got to tell you what their plan is for you. They got to tell you. That's why none of the things that unfold in the world, as shocking and evil as they are ever really a surprise, because they're always telegraphed by the enemy. They always talk about what they're going to do, and then people are completely shocked and stunned when they actually do it. And I think this time, of course, the White Hats are in control, and they accelerated the process, and they designed the process to wake up the public, to make people realize what's actually happening. And with every passing day, with all this information that's coming out, and really it's only been, I mean, sure, some major stuff has come out, but compared to what we know is going to come out, just the tip of the iceberg, really, if that. But, in this pantomime, like I said, I mean, it's a total dumpster fire. I mean, I talked about the illegal invasion. I mean, one person pointed out on Telegram that to put this number in perspective, the 400,000 people in 1 month, to put that in perspective, that's the same size. That's actually twice the size of the French army, the active French army, which is about 200,000. And that's in 1 month. And especially if you're looking at it, as I do, as an invasion, which it is. Now, I'm not suggesting that all of these people are enemy combatants. Some people may have a different point of view. I don't. But just in terms of a force, of an invading force, it's hard to deny that that's what it is. And when it's twice the size of the army of a major power, a major world military power, that's concerning, or it should be, when it happens in 1 month. But what does it really come down to in the end? What we know what it always comes down to is access to the information and people's willingness to actually pay attention to the information and listen to it. Now, like I've been saying a lot lately, the good news is that so much information is coming out so fast that the mainstream media, the dam of the mainstream media, they can't get in the way. They're not big enough and strong enough and powerful enough. When this ocean hits, and we can all sense it. It's here. The storm is here. How it's going to actually unfold, the pieces, that nobody really, there are only a few people in the world who can answer that question. But we all know, we sense it, we feel it in our bones. The storm is here. It is October. It is reckoning time. All of this information is coming out. All of these different forces are converging at once. The storm is upon us. We feel it in our bones. We feel it in our souls. How it's going to unfold, we don't know. But the one thing we do know is that tidal wave of information is coming. It's unstoppable. And the mainstream media, we already know, is a wounded animal. They're limping around playing a confidence game, but they're also, both of their legs are broken and they're bleeding out on the ground. But they still got their talking heads up there pretending that everything is okay. We can see right through it, but the fact of the matter is they're a wounded animal. People don't even believe in their crap anyway. 3 out of 4 people, probably more now. That was weeks ago that came out. That 3 out of 4 people didn't trust the media. That was before the audit information came out. Before all these other revelations that have happened since then, that the media has lied about, because that's all they do, is lie. That number's only gone up. So what is going to happen with all of this information? The media can't control the narrative anymore. It's obvious on its face that they can't. Yes, there's still the Pied Piper for all of the sheep out there. I'm not suggesting that they don't have any power. But the majority of this country and this world are awake. And that is a major, major problem for them. And it goes beyond that. It goes beyond being a major problem. They can't do anything about it. Even if they were all powerful, they'd have a war on their hands. Of course, I believe that the war, not suggesting it's over, but that the major battles were already won. And what's playing out now is for the public. But nevertheless, the mainstream media, regardless of where you stand on this entire scenario, whether you think it's a pantomime, whether you think it's real, regardless of where you stand, you can't deny that all of this information is out there. More and more information is just absolutely gushing out from all different angles, from everywhere. It's coming from Durham. It's coming from Project Veritas. They're absolutely amazing. They've got Pfizer on video now talking about how admitting that our antibodies are probably better than the jab. Well, duh, you think? I mean, it just gets more and more insane. What do they need to do? I honestly believe that if Project Veritas got Fauci on video admitting to his plot to wipe people out, people wouldn't believe it. I mean, they could literally get these people on tape admitting to crimes. And the mainstream media spins it or ignores it, and nothing ever happens. I mean, this has been happening for years and years and years and years. I mean, don't get me wrong. Project Veritas has made an enormous impact, and a lot has happened directly because of Project Veritas. But what I'm talking about is in the grand scheme of things, these people get caught on video committing crimes over and over and over and over again. And it's just, the American people have known for a long time, a good portion of the American public has known for a long time that there's no justice in this country. But people, I think that's the main driver of this awakening. People are realizing that there is no justice, that there is something fundamentally wrong with this system on all different levels. And it doesn't matter what your perspective is, whether it's on social issues, whether you're a social activist. I mean, that's the thing with all this social justice warrior crap. That's why all this stuff was invented by the enemy, to co-opt this awakening, you see. That's what they do. They knew that the awakening was going to hit. So they had to figure out a way to politicize it and to turn us against one another in the process of our awakening, so we would be convinced that we're all enemies. And yeah, there are a lot of bad people on the left in these I mean, certainly Antifa. I have nothing positive to say about Antifa. I mean, if I find out otherwise at some point in time, so be it. But everything I've heard is negative about them. But I've heard about BLM, that they're actually stepping up and saying, we don't want this mandate in New York, and we're going to protest this in New York. And I've mentioned this before, and I mean, that's really bad news if you're the Democratic Party. If BLM is marching against you and you're a Democrat, those are coffin nails. But the point I'm making here is that the enemy, they take a movement, they take a great awakening that they knew was coming, and they had to poison it and subvert it by branding someone else as the enemy and not them, which is what they always do all throughout history. It all just depends on how they tailor it for that specific moment in history. But their game plan is always the same. It's always the same. They control all of the different avenues of human thought. And so therefore, they're able to manipulate humanity into thinking that some other faction of humanity is the enemy, when in reality, they're the enemy. They've been the enemy the entire time. But because they control all of the information, because they control all of the money, because they control all the levers of power, and because information, we weren't living in an information age, because of that, they were able to get away with this for centuries. War after war after war. They were able to continually do this, and the public never got wise. But then something happened, of course. Then the internet happened. And not too long after the internet came along, No Such Agency discovered that they had finally come upon a window, a window of opportunity. Because all of these evil monsters, all of these criminal scumbags, they were just as addicted to the technology that they unleashed upon all of us as we were. And they got sloppy and they got lazy. And not only that, they're arrogant. They never believed that they were going to be caught. They never believed that there was ever going to be any shift in power. A lot of these people, they're so arrogant. That's why they flaunt their criminality openly. One of the many reasons. But they never imagined that the tables were going to turn like this. But so they continued to commit all their crimes, but now, of course, there was evidence. And of course, that's exactly why Trump created the Space Force. All of this is connected. All of this is connected. And like I've said before, I do believe that this was all a sting operation right from the beginning. It's like that video where Jerome Corsi that I was talking about not too long ago, where he talks about this, that the military was ready. There was so much, no such agency and military intelligence had so much evidence, so much sickening, disgusting proof of not only treason, not only high treason, not only high corruption, but they had all of the information on crimes against humanity, all of this sick depravity. They knew everything, and the generals were ready to move and perform a coup d'etat in this country. And the only reason that they didn't, the only reason that they stayed their hand was because of Donald Trump, because Trump decided. They approached him. And from what I understand, there were a couple of different tests of trust on either side that had to take place for Trump to trust who they really were. This, I think it's, as Cliff High calls it, the self-assembled collective of these group of generals, however you want to refer to them. They came to Trump. They had to test his honesty, his patriotism, his loyalty, his courage, and he had to do likewise. He had to make sure that they were for real and they really knew what they were talking about and so forth. But after that exchange took place and Trump knew what he was involved in, he made the decision that he was going to run for president to prevent this country from falling into a civil war, because that would have undoubtedly occurred. And the military generals at the time were completely aware of this. That had they gone through with their plan of a coup d'etat, that would have resulted in an unavoidable civil war in this country. The only question would have been how widespread it was. But given how many guns, given how well armed this country is, I mean, that's, if God forbid a civil war ever broke out, it would devolve very, very quickly. And I don't think there would be any controlling it. So that wasn't the best option. But of course, had the generals not planned on doing that, they knew exactly what these monsters had planned, was the complete destruction of humanity. So it really was their only hope, was to perform this coup d'etat until they spoke to Trump. And the plan was formed. Now, I think that this whole thing, this entire time, in Trump's entire presidency, from day one, from the moment that he came down, but forget even his presidency, from his candidacy, from the moment that he came down that escalator, that man was playing a role. This has all been a sting operation. I believe that he intended to win the first time. They understood, the generals, they came to understand that he could actually win, and that he was the only one that could actually pull this off. But that when they became convinced that he could actually win and get into power, that was stage one of the plan. That was only stage one, to demonstrate to the world what you can do when you actually attempt to put things right side up again. When you actually implement common sense policies, America first policies, policies that are in the best interest of the people. People had to see, despite whatever the media said about him, despite how much everybody tried to brand him as the devil, he knew that he was going to face all that. But regardless, he also knew that he was going to be showing the world the difference and that people were not going to be able to ignore the difference, especially when they got to phase 2 of the plan, which was Trump's planned defeat in the 2020 election. When I say defeat, of course, I put that in quotation marks. This was all a plan. This was all a sting operation. Trump set this whole thing up. The White Hat set this entire thing up by controlling all of the key players, by setting traps that they jump directly into because they're 8 steps ahead, because they've got technology that's far beyond anything that the enemy could even dream about. Why? Because this is a galactic struggle. And we are aligned with non-terrestrials, with positive non-terrestrials who have given us directly, I believe, the technology that has enabled the defeat of the enemy. And made it possible for us to be so far ahead, for them to be so far ahead of the enemy, which enabled them to reverse everything that the enemy did, to re-engineer everything that they did, like a jujitsu move, to turn everything they did against them. Trump is an absolute genius. And as time goes by, we're going to get more information. I guarantee it. We're going to find out exactly, when the history, of course, is told, the true history, the role that Trump played in this whole situation. But there's no changing. I mean, I have to examine both sides, as I always do. There's no changing what's actually going on underneath the surface. Doesn't change the fact that on the surface is an absolute disaster. I mean, you've got the House Democrats have introduced a forced sterilization and 3-child limit bill. I mean, did you hear that? In the United States of America, a congressman introduces a forced sterilization and 3-child limit bill. I mean, holy pantomime. I believe that this is just so insane that people, when they read this, I mean, when people see this, people who aren't awake, they open up the newspaper or they're scrolling through their phone, and they see that the House Democrats have they want to force sterilization on people now. They want to tell them how many children they can have now. I mean, if that doesn't get people's attention. But that's the thing. I was about to say that nothing will, but I've said that so many times. That's just it. It just gets so insane that you start to wonder to yourself, is there ever going to be a point when people are going to hear something on TV and they're finally going to say, that is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. That doesn't make any sense. Because I think that's exactly what the White Hats are trying to do. They're trying to get people on their couches watching the TV to look at the TV and go, what? That doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, I think that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to wake people up to finally get it. That what they're hearing on TV, they have to stop listening to every single thing they hear on TV and believing it to be the gospel truth. And how outrageous does it have to get? It's just unbelievable. And then you've got the Taiwan military, as I believe a part of this pantomime, I think, is going to be a military confrontation between the United States and China, and I do believe Russia will be involved as well. You've seen, I mean, they're building up. You've got buildups on the border of Israel. You've got buildups on the border of Iran, of Armenia, of Russia, of the Ukraine. You've got, like I said, the Taiwan military is on high alert. So the other major marker, I mean, of course, we talked about, the financial, and I think that's that's another major shoe that's going to drop very, very soon in October. When exactly, the timing, I don't know, but I do believe the financial crisis is coming very fast, which is one of the major markers that some of the main folks out there, like 107 and Gene, have been talking about these major markers that have to occur before we get that are going to indicate that we're in the eye of the storm. And you have all of this military buildup going on, and that's a major indication. I think that this pantomime, I mean, how this is actually going to play out, I don't know, but I think that this is a white hat operation. I do believe that the white hats are in Russia. I do believe, and in China, President Xi and President Putin, I do believe, are part of the alliance. This has been well established. These are the leaders of these countries. So I believe that that this entire thing is being engineered. And I also believe that it's very possible that it's going to, I'm not suggesting there may not be some forms of military strike, but I do believe that when we see those in the United States, my theory, again, and I've had this corroborated by, certain information out there and certain sources, that it's very plausible that we'll see some kind of physical destruction on the United States, but it wouldn't surprise me that where we see it is going to be exactly the type of structures that the white hats would rather not be moving into the future. And of course, the structures we're talking about, you're very well aware of. I mean, if you watch Gene's decodes and all of these structures all throughout the world, all of these satanic buildings, they got to go. They can't exist anymore. Do I believe that this simulated war that's going to happen may in fact be a covert operation to wipe all of these sites off the face of the earth once and for good? Yeah, I think that's a strong possibility. I definitely think that's a strong possibility. And in I need to get more information about this, for a follow-up, really, but I was reading that yesterday, South Africa's highest court was poised to free the continent once and for all from the central bank, and of course, by extension, the cabal, paving the way for the rollout of the quantum financial system, and of course, NESARA and GESARA. So we are living through an absolutely incredible time, as you know. I mean, there's so many things going on for people who are awake, for people who are aware. I mean, you can tell how animated I am by all the stuff that's going on. It's exciting. I mean, it's in some ways it's scary because I can sense that we're really getting close to that precipice, and I think that any day now we could really go over the edge and really get into the eye of the storm. Again, how this is actually going to play out, what's going to happen first, what date it's going to happen on, nobody knows, folks. And if you're trying to figure that out, well, good luck. And if you figure something out, please let me know. But everybody that I've talked to is scratching their head wondering the same thing, but at a spiritual, at a gut level. And we have to remember that what's really happening, when we scroll back and we remember, we zoom out, what's really happening here is that humanity is ascending. The consciousness, the collective consciousness of humanity is ascending, is rising into the fifth dimension. And we are transcending the dark magic, the evil, the deception, the propaganda, the mind control, the debt slavery. We're transcending all of it collectively. That's what's happening here. And even at a deeper level beyond that, what's really happening is that God himself is intervening to provide for and to assist humanity in the ascension process. Because I do believe that God, and I do believe that God has planned something entirely new for humanity. All of my research, in my spirit, in my gut, I do believe that God is going to do something that is completely unprecedented throughout all of history. And yes, I think at the end of the day, as this dumpster fire rages all around us, and as this pantomime makes it seem as if this corrupt, evil world is about to completely crumble once and for all, which on one level is true, and makes it seem as if there's no hope left, that's when I do believe that God Almighty will show himself to the people. And the people are going to understand once and for all how we got here. And the reason that we got here, yes, was because of the Cabal. But because of the Cabal, their ability to turn us away, to turn so many of us away from God. And that is something that we need to learn collectively as well, and we can never allow to happen again. All of these higher density beings out there, they all understand. The reason that they're higher density beings is because they understand that any service to self, and Gene Decode talks about this a lot, is futile. The only type of service, the only rational act is to serve God, is to serve, like Gene says, the highest forms of, or the highest purposes of life everywhere. That's what this is all about. See, the Cabal has, the reason that we don't necessarily all think that way collectively as humanity is because the Cabal has given us their mindset. They've transplanted their mindset into the mindset of humanity, and the ascension process, which God himself has made possible, is the process where our consciousness transcends the ability of the Cabal to be able to corral us, to hold us down. All of us are going to turn in to fast racing horses, and they're not going to be able to slow us down anymore. They're not going to be able to corral us. That's another metaphor that I borrowed from Gene. And I think it's an absolute certainty that this is not only this is going to happen, but this is happening. We are witnessing it right now. And boy, is it's an unbelievable honor. And to be in this position, to be able to have an audience to communicate with and to get feedback from, this is the most exciting moment that I can ever imagine in my life. And I'm just so honored. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed tonight's episode. Please let me know in the comments, or you can let me know on Telegram. If you haven't joined my Telegram already, please do. If you haven't joined all of my platforms, BitChute, Rumble, Podbean, YouTube, for who knows how long, that could change at any moment. But I also have a backup channel on YouTube, so those of you who listen to me on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe if you'd like to, in the event that I get thrown off of YouTube. If you want to stay up to date with my videos on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to my backup channel. Please do anything that you can to support me, to support this platform, and I'll be back soon, God willing, with another report. Godspeed, each and every one of you. God love each and every one of you. And thank you for listening. God bless. Patriot out.